In this lesson, we discuss very light material or light emitting material or very light MTL. As the name suggests, this material lets you produce self-illuminated surfaces. It also has some options that lets you completely turn your object to a light source like the very mesh light that we discussed in the lighting section. We are going to be working with the scene in this lesson. Right now, the only light source is the environment. Our very sun is turned off, and I decrease the height of the sun to make our very sky in the environment darker and maybe closer to sunset. We also have our very portal lights enabled in front of our windows. We have these ceiling lamps and this plane. For now, let's hide this plane as we don't need it. The two main objects that we want to turn them into a light source are this light MTL01 object and light MTL02 object that are part of these ceiling lamps. Let's go to the frame buffer and take a look at a render with the current lighting. As you can see, the environment is the only light source right now, and we have a very dark scene. Open up the material editor and let's add a very light material. Also, let's select our wannabe light sources and apply the very light material to them. Now, without changing anything, let's see what the lighting would look like right now. Now we have transferred those objects into self-illuminated objects, and because GI is turned on, they affect the overall lighting and illumination of the scene as well. Now let's explore the parameters of the very light material. First, we have color, which is obviously the color of the light or self-illumination. Next, we have this color multiplier value, and obviously the higher the number, the brighter the self-illuminated surface will be. Let's take a look at different renders with different multiplier values. In the first render, multiplier was set to 1, then 2, and then 4. And each time the self-illuminated surfaces and also the overall scene illumination are brighter. Next, you have this light color texture slot, which allows you to specify a texture to be used as the self-illumination color. In this case, let's use a gradient ramp. Change the mapping type to planar from object XYZ. Change the gradient type to box. And let's change the left and the medium color to white. And the right color maybe to a warm color like 194 for red, 139 for green, and 53 for blue. Now, in our frame buffer, we can see how this texture is controlling the light color. For now, let's disconnect this map from our light material. In the opacity slot, you can define a texture to control the opacity of the light material. So you can simply, if you want, make your light source itself invisible, but it would still emit light and affect the overall lighting. Next, we have emit light on the back side, and if it's enabled, not only the front side of the polygons, but also the back side will emit light. Let me unhide this plane that we have and assign our light material to it. Now let's take a look at two renders with and without emit light on the backside. In the first, which was done with emit light on the backside off, you can see the backside of the plane is not emitting any light. For the next render, it was on. Now you can see actually the backside of the plane is emitting light, and it affects the nearby wall. Now let's turn emit light on backside off. Also, let's hide the plane for now as we don't need it. We have compensate camera exposure. When enabled, the intensity of the light material will be adjusted to compensate the exposure correction from the very physical camera. We have multiply color by opacity. When enabled, the color of the light material is multiplied by the opacity texture. Otherwise, the color and opacity act independently. Now, using this displace option, you can add displacement to the very light material. Obviously, you can use this texture slot to specify your displacement map and this value to control the strength of the displacement mapping. Down here we have direct illumination controls, and using these controls you can turn the self-illuminated surface to an actual light source. Right now the surfaces with this material applied to are only self-illuminated, and the reason they affect the overall lighting a bit is because GI is turned on, but they have no direct lighting contribution in the scene. When direct illumination is on, now any object with this material applied to is an actual light source, like a V-Ray mesh light. Let's see the renders with and without direct illumination, but first let's turn off GI in our render settings so we can see the results a bit better. In the first render, direct illumination is off, and in the next one it is on. And now we can see when the direct illumination is on, we have an actual light source and not just a self-illuminated object. We have subdivs to control the quality of the light, and cutoff threshold, which is a threshold below which the light contribution won't be computed. And as I discussed these parameters in the lighting section extensively, I won't explain them any further here. For the final render, let's turn on GI. Change the irradiance map preset to high. Image sampler type to bucket. And in the common tab, change the dimension to 1200 by 1600. And now we can render the scene. And here is our final render. Great. In this lesson, we discussed V-Ray light material. I'll see you in the next lesson.